How's your hammer, everybody? I'm PT Devil, and it's time for another discussion. I love doing these videos because it's a nice chance to be able to just talk to you, and I can do these videos on my own without not having to rely on Zach all the time. Of course, I'd end up having him look over this one too, but that's more on fact of my schedule starting to get a little busy this week. But shut up. Anyway, the topic for this discussion is going to be the top 10 hardest to summon monsters, parentheses, that aren't worth it. So we're going to be looking at some of these monsters and looking at their summoning conditions. See, one, how hard are they to summon, and two, are what they do worth it for the amount of effort you're putting in to summon them. So all that said, let's go ahead and get started. Number 10 goes to Dark Sage. I kind of feel bad at putting this card up there because it was from one of my favorite duels of the anime, but it's kind of not worth the effort. To get this bad boy out, you have to call correctly the effect of Time Wizard while controlling a Dark Magician. So you're already banking on a 1 in 2 shot of getting this thing out. And when you special summon this way, you get to search any spell card in your deck. That's pretty handy. There aren't too many ways that you can actually do that, just search out any spell card whatsoever. But, for all that effort, you only get to use his effect once. And technically he's a semi-Nomi monster, so once you properly summon him, you can summon him again, but he only gets the searching ability when he is summoned in with his own effect, so you're not getting much use out of this guy. Most you can get out of him after that is just a 3200 wall. If you're just looking for a wall, I can think of a lot more or better options than friggin' Dark Sage. Number 9 goes to Machina Force. What does this big bad Megazord looking motherfucker do? Well, he can only be special summoned by the effect of Commander Covington, which in turn requires you to sacrifice Ice Machina Defender, Soldier, and Sniper. So that's 4 very specific monsters that you need to have on your field in order to summon this card. They have some synergy with each other that can support them, but not enough to justify bringing out this monstrosity. Admittedly, he does have a pretty beefy 4600, which is friggin' massive for a main deck monster, but he also needs to pay 1,000 light points in order to use that body, and he doesn't have any protection whatsoever, so literally any other form of non-battle removal can get rid of this guy. You're better off going with Fortress, don't even bother. Number 8 goes to the absolute meme lord, Zushin the Sleeping Giant. So what does this lardy-ass motherfucker do? The only way to get this guy out is to tribute a monster that has 10 Zushin counters on it. How do you place Zushin counters on field? All you gotta do is reveal this guy in your hand and place it on a level 1 normal monster you control. I don't know what lame-brained degenerate idiot thought it was a good idea to have this kind of limitations on any monster. I mean, how are you going to keep a frail level 1 vanilla anything onto the field long enough to place 10 counters on this thing? Keep in mind, you can only use this effect during your turn, which means you gotta use 10 of your turns. That's not counting the opponent's turn, so that's 19 turns in total you need in order to get this guy out on the field. If any duel at all lasts 19 turns, then the duel is either completely stalled out or somebody has won by now. So it's gotta have something to be worth it, right? Admittedly, he himself isn't too terrible. He's completely unaffected by other card effects, which means it's going to be hard to get rid of him. And he gains attack equal to the attack of whatever monster he's battling, plus 1,000, so he's almost guaranteed to run over everything. But keep in mind I said almost, because due to any fancy rulings, there are tons of removal options you can get rid of them. Besides just kaijuing him away, because let's face it, this guy is supreme kaiju bait. You could also get rid of him with cards like Lindbloom, Moon Mirror Shield, Crystal Wing. You know, this thing dies to the hunter with 7 weapons, for fuck's sake. Meditate on that for a second. Elemental Hero Divine Neos. Oh boy, I hope nobody's gonna roast me alive for this one, putting a hero on this list. I mean, then again, look at this shiny turd. It'll only be fusion summoned by using 5 different monsters for its fusion material. Any combination of Neos, Neospace, Neospatian, and Hero monsters. Quick heads up, there is only one Neospace ace monster in the entire game. And I think he added that on just so Neos' girlfriend didn't feel left out. Not only that, but you have to use at least one each of Neos or Neospace, there's that girlfriend clause again, Neospatian, and Hero monster. And the other 2 can come from either of those categories. Just thank God it's not a contact fusion like the other those fusions are. I mean, would that even be possible to keep all those alive on the field? What does this guy do, huh? Well, once per turn you can banish one Neos, Neospace, Neospatian, or Hero monster from your graveyard. He gains 500 attack and copies that monster's effects until the end phase. Whoop-de-frickin-do. Yeah, I'm looking at the tips page for this card, and hard as to look for possible banishment targets that you could possibly copy, but these are all pretty much unsummonable monsters on their own. You know, 90% of them come from the extra deck themselves, which at that point you might as well just stick with the original monster. Look, I'm sorry, I'm not going to waste resources going to Rainbow Neos and hope for a miracle that I can and get this guy out just so I can have a slightly weaker Rainbow Neos that only works till the end of the turn. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to waste that much resources to go into this thing. Yeah, this thing has no business being splashed into any other hero deck. And the only deck that could possibly run him is a deck specifically designed to turbo this guy out as fast as humanly possible. In which case, you're not really going to get much out of him. Super Vehicroid Stealth Union! Oh boy, it's shitty fusion time, I see. A little early for this now, aren't we? This guy needs to be fusion summoned using 4 very specific monsters: Truckroid, Expressroid, Drillroid, and Stealthroid. He's not a contact fusion, so you also need a fusion spell, which means you have to have those 4 weak Roid monsters either on the field or more than likely in your hand. What does he do? Well, he has a pretty beefy 3600 damage. It's not the best, but it's alright. You know, and he also deals piercing damage, which is helpful. And he can also equip any monster on the field to him, other than a machine-type monster for some reason. And if he's equipped with a monster this way, he can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. With effects like that, this thing must be amazing. I don't know, why doesn't this thing get played more often? Because he halves his own attack whenever he attacks. What the fuck? How could you possibly justify going into that much minus for an 1800 beat eater that can occasionally deal piercing damage? And for all that work, you might as well just run Asura Priest. He doesn't even get any protection from the monsters he equips, which would have been a lot cooler and might have helped him survive a bit, but no, he dies to any monster removal whatsoever, so you're pretty much going to lose him immediately. I mean, the best thing about him is the once per turn spot removal, but there are way better options than that. Yeah, you're better off just saving room for instant fusion in 1000 Eyes Restrict if that's what you're going for. Sofia, the goddess of rebirth. Well, you know, with a name that cool, it's gotta be worth it, right? How do you get this this bad boy out, well, you're gonna have to jump through quite a few friggin' hoops to get this thing onto the field. It can only be special summoned from your hand by banishing one monster each of the four card types it lists. Those being Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, and Ixies. Now that might have been okay. Hey, back in Master Rule 3, and we weren't so limited on getting these things out, but controlling more than 2 types of extra deck monsters at a time is virtually impossible today. Hey, admittedly, you can banish them from either side of the field, but really, what are the odds that 1, your opponent's going to have the right kinds of monsters that you need, and 2, that you're going to be able to special summon the other monsters that you need while taking that into account? Calculator says slim to none. But if you manage to get this thing out, you have the sheer pleasure to be able to banish all cards from both players' hands, field, and graveyards. Wow, talk about overkill. I mean, admittedly, she does basically win you the game at that point, but once again, it's virtually impossible to get this thing out in today's metagame. Just because that sort of effect can't be negated by a counter trap or anything doesn't mean she's not prone to other forms of removal. The top deck of spot removal cards like Raigeki or Instant Fusion could easily get rid of it, so you're not really going to guarantee your win or anything. As far as Cow Jesus goes, don't even bother trying to summon it. Instead, save yourself the pain and build a Necroz's Sofia Turbo deck. You lose the hand nuke effect, but it's a lot easier to ritual summon in the Necroz variant. Ooh boy, Pinion the Great Sphinx. Oh, he's the boss monster of the first movie. He's gotta be good, right? Well, if he was, you wouldn't be seeing him, let's be honest. He can only be special summoned from the hand or deck, thankfully, when both Andro Sphinx and Sphinx Talea are destroyed simultaneously on your side of the field. I get the idea is to use Pyramid of Light to special summon the former 2 from your hand at a cost of 1,000 life points, and then pop your Pyramid of Light, which will then self-destruct those 2 Sphinxes and summon this bad boy out, but you're gonna go out of your way that much just to get a monster on the field. It better be something worth it instead of this monstrosity. So what does he do? Well, when he hits the field, he gains an extra 3,000 attack, bringing him up to a total of 6,500. Now, a 6,500 attack is fucking massive, alright? It's not the 5-digit attack spread that we saw in the movie, but it's still friggin' huge. Except that the attack increase only lasts until the end phase of the turn it was summoned. At which point he goes back to 3,500 and just becomes a average beat stick with no protection. If you had like a revival effect where you could keep bringing him back with that 6,500 attack, maybe. But as it is, you're better off just using Andro and Talea to go into a rank 10 play, because getting this thing out is really not worth your time. Not to mention, God forbid, if this thing gets summoned during your opponent's turn, then you can't even use that attack to begin with. Pinion, you can suck a fart out of my Sphinx. Number 3 goes to Spirit of the Pharaoh. Now this got I special summoned by the amazing effect of the first sarcophagus. Once you play that during your opponent, you have to have this live until your opponent's end phase. Then you could play the second sarcophagus from your hand or deck. Have them both live until your opponent's next end phase. Then you can place the third sarcophagus on the field. Have them all live until your main phase. Congratulations! You can now summon Spirit of the fucking Pharaoh. So what does he do? Well, when he hits the field, you can special summon and up to 4 level 2 or lower normal zombie type monsters from your graveyard. I'm going to repeat that because it bears repeating. After all the time you spent to get this thing out on the field, you have the pleasure of being able to special summon up to 4 level 2 or lower normal zombie-type monsters from the graveyard. In case you're wondering, there are exactly 11 monsters that fit this category, of which the best one that you could summon is fucking Clown Zombie. Not only is this the most specific, situational, and just downright ineffective revival cards I've ever seen, but the fact that you need to be controlling 3 different continuous spells and not have any of them die, especially in today's metagame where everyone seems to be negating everything left and right, it's not gonna happen. I mean, if his stats were better, I mean, he could possibly qualify as a decent beat stick, but no, he's 2500 with no self protection or other effects whatsoever. You can't even special summon the monsters whenever he wants, only once he hits the field by his own effect. You know, just don't. Just fucking don't. Well, time for the biggest disappointment into a lot of little kids who enjoyed watching the show. Oh, and found out that this piece of shit, it was a lot worse than it turned out to be. Gate Guardian. His only effect details how you get him out, in which you have to tribute one on each of Sangha the Thunder, Kazijin, and Suijin. 3 level 7 monsters that are not searchable by any means, and are all collectively better than this piece of garbage here. Even if you're using pendulums to get at the 3 monsters you need out on the field and then immediately tributing it, all you're left is a 3750 beat stick with no effect whatsoever. You'd be better off just leaving the other 3 monsters on the field because they have interesting effects of their own. One swap while they're on the field, when they're attacked, they can zero out the attack of the monster that's battling them, which is more or less the kind of effect that Gate Guardian had in the show. And they really should have kept in this card, because as it is, there's no reason to get this thing out. Unless you're playing Zubaba General Beatdown or Vehicroid Fighter Turbo, you're not going to want to wait Ace deck space. He's putting in this gigantic brick. Alright, so before we go into number 1, I just want to cover real quick some dishonorable mentions. Fushio Richie for requiring the completely stellar effect of the Great Dizard, which requires you to kill 2 monsters by battle with a 1900 attack tribute monster. Obviously that's never going to happen, but the thing about Richie is that his effects are actually pretty good, and they also make him an ideal wild monster pierce target because he can flip himself face down and sever himself from the effects of said card. That way you can keep him on the field and possibly do some decent damage with him. Armatile the Chaos Phantom. I think this thing would have definitely made the list, but there are a lot of ways you can just cheese him out, with Prisma or Phantom of Chaos. So you can kind of bypass the need for getting 3 Sacred Beasts, so you don't have to go minus 11 into a beat stick that's just safe from being destroyed by battle. Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Evening Twilight. Kind of feel bad leaving this guy off the list because he was Zach's first choice, but I feel he's not that hard to get off. I think it's just more of a testament of the Blackluster Soldier deck as a whole. Graveyard manipulation isn't that hard to do, so it's fairly easy to get an equal number of light and dark monsters in your graveyard. Then we got a Great Moth and then Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. Now, if this video was done even a few months ago, these 2 would have made it on the list for sure, even making it as high as the top spot. I'm not going to name any names, but the Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth knows who he is. But the thing is, the new legacy support that Insect X got allows the decks to just shit these things out whenever they need to for virtually no cost. Oh, you don't even have to summon them via the traditional method. Which brings us to the number 1 spot on the list, and the honor of that goes to Larva moth. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't you just say that insects got some new support and allows them to shit these things out uncontrollably for no cost? Well, the cards I was specifically talking about were Parasite, Paranoid, and Super Cocoon of Evolution, and those cards specifically require that they summon an insect monster that's level 7 or 8. So, to this day, the only way to get a larva moth on the field is through the traditional method. I'm sure most of you know how it's done. For those of you who don't, let me go through it real quick. Summon Petty Moth, a level 1 vanilla that has crappy stats. Equip it with Cocoon of Evolution, either from your hand or field. Now its defense becomes 2,000. On the second of your turns, you can tribute this thing to summon Larva Moth from your hand. And on the 4th and 6th, you can summon the other 2 monsters that I mentioned earlier. Great Moth and Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. And once again, we have a monster that has absolutely 0 protection, 0 effects, and not only that, but it also has crappy stats as well. So Larva Moth takes the number 1 spot after his 2 big brothers left have to actually be played for the first time since they were ever printed. Now, even the tips page for this card says the best use that you can have for this card is just discard fodder. If you're going out of your way to make discard fodder, then you really need to be checked out. Seriously, there's something wrong with you. Anyway, that was my list. I guess let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you liked the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. If you didn't like it, be sure to send any complaints my way via smoke message. But thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, don't get run over. I'll see you guys later. Rest in peace, sweet cow Jesus.